Hi, this is Robert Kearney, Director of International Campaigns.
Por la vida en Colombia está lleno de frutos.
Die losen und manche dann sagen, ja, es ist nicht mehr selbst.
People start saying that, if your thoughts fall foul of the popular opinion, that they're somehow criminal.
Mi hija ha decidido no abortar.
Our freedom in a democracy, in our open society, begins with the freedom of speech.
Ante todo, los pilares de 40 días, ¿no? La oración, el ayuno, la loca.
So sometimes it's just a little thing that we have to do. So
también dignidad, que son creados también por
But
Dios.
Beyond what we say, anything we do at 40 Days for Life, anything we say to defend the unborn, we do with love.
Los bebés no tienen que ser abortados de una madre.
40 Days for Life International Podcast.
El podcast de 40 días por la vida internacional.
Well, hello and welcome to another 40 Days for Life International podcast. My name is Robert Kearney. I'm the Director of International Campaigns for 40 Days for Life. And we're really blessed and honoured to have Dr. Dermot Kearney, who's the former president of the Catholic Medical Association. He has been in a prominent legal hearing with the General Medical Council with regards to abortion pill reversal in the last few years in the United Kingdom, has travelled internationally, spoken extensively about the subject, and also helped many women who have wanted to take the abortion reversal pill by prescribing progesterone after taking the first abortion pill. So the General Medical Council relied on hearsay evidence and banned him from providing progesterone for 18 months around 2021. And this ruling was challenged, and thankfully, before the case was due to go to the High Court, the General Medical Council reversed the ban against him after concluding that there was no case to answer. And MSI Reproductive Choices, Dr. Lord, has, very ideologically driven, attempted to silence any critics and provide misinformation about abortion pill reversal. So what I really hope on this podcast today is that we'll be able to hear lots about abortion pill reversal, and we'll also hear about Dr. Dermot's story and how this is relevant and applicable for the pro-life movement. There's so many people who could learn more about abortion pill reversal, especially those campaigners who are organising prayer vigils outside abortion clinics. This is essential need to know information, and it can help you in your ministry to save lives and impact those around us, to provide a life-saving message for those considering or who've started the abortion process. So, Dr. Dermot, how are you, and how are things today?
I'm fine, thanks, Robert. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me to take part in this broadcast.
Wonderful, and tell us a little bit about your personal story. And you're a cardiologist, and you've been a doctor for decades. You've been president of the for the Catholic Medical Association. Tell us a little bit about your background, your personal story, your history, and then also how you came on just in recent years to be involved in the abortion debate.
I should say I'm a cardiologist, but not only a cardiologist, and that's quite important actually, because one of the accusations made against me in all of this was that a cardiologist has no right to be involved in this type of service. But I'm also, in fact, above all, I'm a general medical physician, and abortion pill reversal, it's a general medical issue. The medication, in fact, if anything, you could call it an endocrinology issue rather than an obstetric or a gynecology issue. So you certainly don't need to be an obstetrician gynecologist. So I'm a general physician with experience in a wide range of medical practice, which I've had for over 30 years. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from Ireland. I grew up in Ireland, did all of my pre-graduate studies in Ireland, qualified in Ireland, did most of my initial training in cardiology and general medicine in the Irish context. Then I moved to the Netherlands for 2 years to do some additional specialist training in the field of cardiology. And then I took up a post in working in the NHS over the last 22 years in the north of England. So I've been here since then. In 2008, I joined the Catholic Medical Association, and that was brought about actually, I think again it's quite important in my overall story, when I came across a young doctor, and she doesn't mind me telling the story because she's given her permission. She was from Poland, trained in Poland, but then came to the UK hoping to develop a career in family medicine, general practice. And in one of her rotations, she was asked to, it was an obstetric job that she was rotated into. And she was asked to prescribe the abortion pill for a young girl who was due to have an abortion procedure. And she said, no, I can't do that, I'm Catholic. And the nurses were astounded because nobody had ever declined to do that type of job in the past. So they thought it was a misunderstanding, and they said, no, you don't need to give the pills. We'll give the pills. You just need to prescribe them. And said, no, I can't have any role in this. I know it's against my conscience. And they once again they were astounded, and they said, well, we'll have to call in the consultant if you're not prepared to do it, because there was nobody else available to do it. And they did. And this was a weekend, a Sunday evening, called in the consultant who shouted at her on the ward in front of patients and nurses that people like her should not be allowed to work in this country. And she obviously broke down in tears, but she stood firm. Now, a few days later, he apologized to her because he had broken the law by trying to pressurize her into doing something against her conscience. And he did apologize. I think possibly somebody might have said it to him that you better apologize to that young doctor. But when I heard her story, and I got it firsthand from herself, she told me all the details. I said, there must be some organization, must be some way that young doctors like that can be protected, because she didn't know anybody in the hospital she was working. She didn't know anybody might be prepared to stand up for her side of the issue. She didn't know if there was any other Catholics probably involved, at least at that stage. So I looked up that same day. I looked up Catholic doctors and medical associations and found the Catholic Medical Association, which I joined that week, and I've been a member ever since. That was 2008. And we provide, and as my intention was, we provide support to not only Catholics but any doctors, even of other religions and none, if there is opposition to their conscientious stance or to their religious stance in the performance of their normal workday activities. So we provide support and advice to people in those sort of situations, and that's actually how we got involved in the abortion pill reversal, because at one of our meetings in 2014, so this was long before I became involved, actually 6 years before I became involved in providing abortion reversal, Jack Scarisbrick, who had founded the Life organization in this country around the time of the Abortion Act, I think, he had heard that young girls who had taken the first abortion pill, because young girls were coming to his organization seeking some advice and help. The word on the street was that even if they'd taken that first abortion pill, mifepristone, there was an opportunity if they were able to receive progesterone treatment, which was the antidote, if you like, to mifepristone. Just as mifepristone blocks the action of progesterone by binding to a progesterone receptor, so it stops the natural action of progesterone, which is essential to maintain pregnancy. So just as mifepristone can block progesterone, if given quickly enough in high enough quantities, doses can actually block the effect of the mifepristone. And that's the rationale behind the abortion pill reversal treatment. So he had heard from the United States that some girls were actually availing of this treatment, and women were coming to him seeking help. He didn't know who he could turn to. He presumed, being the Catholic Medical Association, we would have a pro-life stance, and he asked if we could look into this issue. 2014, there wasn't a lot of information. The actual service had been established in the US in 2012, and there wasn't a lot of information, but year by year, a lot more information became available. We said we'd look into it, and as I said, there wasn't a lot, but by 2018, when we got another request, this time from Claire McCulloch from Good Counsel Network, who pleaded with us because more and more girls were coming to her organization seeking help, and again, there was very little that they could offer. So I promised Claire that I would look into it. I was elected. We have a term of office as president. I was elected president of the CMA that same weekend that Claire spoke to us, and it's a 3-year term. So I promised Claire that I would look into this issue in more detail. I would go to the United States and meet the people involved, which I did. 2018, I went to a Catholic Medical Association annual conference in the US. I met George Delgado, one of the pioneers of the service, and spoke to other people who had been involved. I went to all of the possible lectures and talks, read everything there was on the issue. And by that stage, it was becoming more and more clear that this was effective and safe and necessary. Because that was our initial concern in 2014. We wondered, well, how many women are actually going to seek this service? Is it really necessary? Then we thought, well, okay, even if only 1 or 2 wanted it, then yes, it should be something that's available. But then we wondered, does it work? Because mifepristone is a very potent and potentially lethal drug once it's taken, and it does act quite fast. So we wondered, would it work? But the evidence year by year was becoming more and more clear that yes, it does work. And then our real concern actually was, is it safe? Because the baby has been exposed to mifepristone, and even if he or she survives, in the early stages of pregnancy, even if he survives to term or to later in pregnancy, will there be horrendous problems for that child? We were thinking in terms of drugs like thalidomide, in the early 60s, that caused congenital malformations. The mother's taking it in good faith as an anti-sickness treatment of pregnancy, but then when the children were born, had particularly limb malformations and sometimes other malformations. So we were thinking, would the child suffer any serious long-term consequences, even if he or she managed to survive? And again, year by year, the answer is no, there isn't any increased risk of congenital malformations. We know that progesterone is safe. Progesterone has been used in pregnancy for 50, 60 years to try and prevent miscarriage. And now it's encouraged, particularly for women who've had recurrent miscarriages, it's encouraged to try and prevent miscarriage in those situations. So this is the ideal situation, because while miscarriage can occur for a number of reasons, there's situations where progesterone might be effective are those where there are naturally low levels of progesterone, or the mother isn't producing enough progesterone to maintain the pregnancy. By the way, the reason it's called progesterone, it's an abbreviation of progestational steroid hormone. So it's essential that's abbreviated to progesterone. It's essential to maintain the pregnancy. So in situations where a mother, outside of abortion, an abortion pill, where a mother has naturally low levels of progesterone, there's a risk that her child may not survive and the pregnancy may not continue. But by giving her supplemental exogenous progesterone, that can, and there are probably millions or certainly hundreds of thousands of babies around the world whose mothers were given progesterone during the early stages of pregnancy and helped to maintain their pregnancy and have a healthy child. So this is the ideal situation, because by giving mifepristone, the abortion pill, while it doesn't block the production of progesterone, it mimics a situation where there could be low levels of progesterone. So it's blocking the effect of progesterone, because progesterone, the molecules can't get bind to the receptors because the mifepristone gets in there first. So by giving higher levels of progesterone, at least it gives a chance for the progesterone to compete with the mifepristone for these essential receptors that help to maintain the pregnancy once they're stimulated by the correct molecule, the progesterone molecule.
So what do pro-lifers need to know about abortion pill reversal? Say you're organising a vigil outside an abortion centre and you meet somebody, they've taken the first pill, and then they say, ooh, I'll be interested in abortion pill reversal. What can you tell me about it? What is it, and how does it work? So if you're a pavement counsellor, what would you want to say somebody who was interested in taking the abortion reversal pill?
Well, I'll explain to them how the first drug that they're taking, the mifepristone, I'll explain how that works. I'll tell them that it blocks the action of natural progesterone, which the body is producing during pregnancy, and it's essential to maintain the pregnancy. But it's not too late. There's a window of opportunity, because unlike in surgical abortions, where once that instrument is introduced, whether it's a vacuum or a forceps, there's no going back. Or the child is injected with the feticide inducing agent, there's no going back. But at least there's a window of opportunity. Now, the important thing, probably the most important thing for a woman or a counsellor to know, is that if the mother takes both abortion pills, as she will be directed to do by the abortion provider. So mifepristone is the first step. It's a two-step process to induce abortion chemically. So mifepristone is the first, and that blocks the action of progesterone. Then they're advised 24 to 48 hours later to take the second drug, misoprostol. In most cases, mifepristone will already have killed the child. It'll have basically deprived it of its nutrient and oxygen supply by interfering with the endometrium, the lining of the womb, detaching the lining of the womb from the womb itself. Baby and the trophoblast or placenta is attached to that lining, and that's shed away, and the supply of nutrients and oxygen is cut off. And then the misoprostol, it's a prostaglandin agent that's taken 1 or 2 days later, and that causes intense contraction of the womb and expels baby and the other products of conception at the same time. At least that's the plan. And if a mother takes both of those pills, as she will have been instructed to do, there's a 98 to 99% chance her baby will die, will not survive. So there's a less than 2% chance that the child might survive. There still is a small chance, and that there are babies out there who were exposed to both the mifepristone and the misoprostol, but the chances are very, very low. If she takes the first abortion pill, mifepristone, but for some reason decides not to take the second pill, or either she can't get it or she's changed her mind, if she doesn't get progesterone, there's about an 80% chance her baby will die. So there's about a 20% chance or less, depending on the stage of pregnancy, but overall 20% chance that the baby might still survive as long as she doesn't take the misoprostol, even though she's taken the mifepristone. If she takes mifepristone, changes her mind, doesn't take misoprostol, and if we manage to get her progesterone in sufficient quantities early enough, so before serious bleeding, heavy bleeding, before serious cramps have started, because if they've started, then the miscarriage has already begun, if you like. But if we can get progesterone high enough doses in there, ideally within a matter of hours, because time is crucial here, there's a greater than 55% chance that the baby will survive. And again, that depends on this time. If we can get it within 6 hours, you're well into 60% chance plus. So while it's not as good as we would like it to be, we'd love it to be 100% chance. We are more than doubling the survival rate of the babies in this situation. Now, in medical terms, that is remarkable, because there are very, very few interventions in medicine where you have a certain mortality rate of 80%, where you can reduce that certainty down to less than 50%. So that's a greater than 30%, 35% mortality reduction by a simple, safe treatment. There are very few. In fact, I've on many occasions I've advocated that the pioneers of this treatment, George Delgado, Matthew Harrison in particular, Mary Davenport, these are some of the names of the pioneers. They should really be nominated for a Nobel Prize, because there are very, very few interventions where such a success rate in terms of saving lives is found.
Have you got some glory stories or like testimonies of women that you've helped and brought them back from the brink and met the baby? And can you share some of those testimonies? And how many cases have you been involved in?
Yeah, well, I've been involved in over 150 now. Again, it's important to remember, not all of the girls will go ahead with the treatment. In fact, it's 35% decide for whatever reason not to go ahead with the treatment. They would just want to talk about it as an option. And I don't put any pressure on them. I explain to them what we do. I explain the success rate, the failure rate. I explain the side effects of progesterone, because it can sometimes cause nausea. It can cause tiredness, especially in the first 3 days, where we have to give quite a high dose of treatment for 3 days and then a lower dose for at least another 2 weeks. So I explain to them. So about 35% decide not to go ahead with the treatment. Then there are others where it's too late. They're already bleeding very heavily. There are severe cramps. And while they would have liked to have saved their child, it's too late for them to do so. So in my own case, 33 babies have been born. Hopefully a few more on the way in the not too distant future. Nice. In the UK, I'm aware of 69 in total. Between a number of us have been providing the service. There are 69 that I'm definitely aware of that have survived with the help of abortion pill reversal. There may be others that I don't know about, because some of the girls that I've helped, and I'm sure my colleagues have helped, they're doing fine. They get up to 13, 14, 15 weeks, and then we don't hear anything more from them. And we don't pressurize them. Like, we can't keep hounding them to give us more information. So we wish them well, and we ask them, if there's anything more we can do, if you let us know. So it may be in those cases that they just want to put this behind them. They don't want to be reminded about it. And maybe they've had babies that have been successfully born, or maybe they've had later miscarriages that we didn't, or maybe they went ahead with an abortion at a later stage that they didn't want to tell us about. So there are some that we don't find out what the answers are. And that's probably about 10% of the women that I've helped. But overall, 33 babies that I'm aware of. Now, I'm very protective, because I'm aware that this is a very sensitive issue. In many of the cases, the families of the girls don't know about it. So I don't broadcast unless they really want to. And there's one girl in particular, Amrita, who has been very upfront and very vocal, and because she appreciates so much her little girl who turned 2 recently, that she wants the world to know that no, it's not too late to change your mind once you've taken that first abortion pill. So Amrita has been, and she's spoken at March for Life, and she's spoken at other events in the British Isles, maybe elsewhere, and so her story has been broadcast around the world. And there are many others. At various talks I've given, I've told one or two of the stories, keeping the identity of the girl anonymous. But there've been some remarkable stories. The one that always comes to mind was if you want to call it a midnight run, because a lot of the calls we get are quite late in the evening, because most of the girls who find us, they go through the American helpline. There's a little bit of time involved. They have to get consent, and they tell a little bit about it, and then they have to try and contact myself or one of the other UK providers. And then that can add all to a little bit of delay. And so sometimes we don't get the call until 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And sometimes it's difficult, depending on the location of where the mother is, to find a pharmacy that might be open, because we have to find a local pharmacy for them that has the medication in stock. And again, that sometimes can be another problem. Not all pharmacies will stock the particular progesterone that we use, micronized progesterone. Most do, but some don't. But there was one occasion on a Saturday night at 11:25 at night, where I got a call from a girl in the north of England. Came through the American helpline, asking could I help a young woman in the north of England. And luckily she had done her own homework, because while she was having negotiations with the American nurse, she had looked up in her region were there any pharmacies open, because on 11:30 on a Saturday night it's going to be difficult to get a pharmacy that's open. And she found one 30 miles away from her home, and she was able to tell me exactly where it was and could I contact the pharmacy. And luckily they had a progesterone in stock. So when I rang the girl back to say she was already on her way, luckily, once again, a very important element can be the support that she has of her husband or her boyfriend or her partner. So her partner was very supportive, and he was driving the car while she was on the phone. I spoke to the pharmacist. I told her where she was coming from, and he said, well, we close at midnight. She's not going to make it. She's too far away. So I said, well, we'll see what you can do. And while she was on the way, she actually phoned the pharmacy, and she pleaded with them at around 10 to 12, said, I'm nearly there. We'll be almost there in a few minutes. Please stay open just an extra 10 minutes. And he did. He stayed open until the midnight. She got the medication, and her little girl is over 2 years of age at this stage, and they were so happy. Now, she knew the time was of the essence. She knew that if she didn't get the treatment that night, then it would be Sunday morning. A lot of pharmacies don't open until maybe 10, 11, 12 o'clock on a Sunday. So you're talking about another 10, 11, 12 hours before she could have started treatment. And that could have been crucial. She may already have suffered a serious miscarriage or a total miscarriage at that stage. So there's lots of stories like that, but that was the one that sort of springs out as being the sort of a midnight run, late rush to get there as quickly as possible. Other ones, there's been some sad stories where pressures has been put, sometimes by the medical profession. I had one young girl who was, without her consent, her abortion was scheduled, and she did take the first abortion pill under pressure, because she was told that she wasn't fit to be. Well, she was 19, she was a student, finances weren't great, but she knew that this was wrong. And again, luckily, she had very good support from her own mother and her brother. But social services tried to persuade her. And then when they heard that she hadn't gone ahead with abortion, they really made life difficult for her, and they threatened, and true to their word, their threats came true. They threatened that if she didn't go ahead with the abortion, that they would see the social services took her child from her when the child was born. And they did. And it took 9 months help with support of people who helped me, Christian Concern, and a very good local solicitor or lawyer in her region that managed to get her little child, and they're reunited. But it took almost 9 months after the child was born before they could be reunited, purely because of the vindictiveness of some healthcare professionals who were annoyed that she didn't follow their advice. So this is the sort of thing that we can be up against.
Extraordinary. Are you able to share a bit of Amrita's story as well?
Yeah, Amrita,
Yeah.
I think she was around 7 or 8 weeks pregnant when she panicked, and she says this herself. She panicked. Again, her boyfriend he's a lovely guy, but again, he said he would support her whatever her decision was, and she panicked and she took the first pill. But then almost immediately, so within a couple of hours of taking it, she knew it was the wrong thing. Even before she took it, they had sent it to her by post. BPAS had sent to her by post, and she kept it in a drawer, wondering will she, won't she, and then she decided, that I won't be able to cope with this child. But once she had taken it, she knew that she'd done the wrong thing. So she actually rang BPAS, as most of the girls do. Most of the girls will. The first move is to ring the abortion provider, whoever's given them the pills, and they will say, "Listen, I've changed my mind. Can I do anything?" Generally, they're told, "No, there's nothing you can do. You have to take the second pill," which is a lie. And in fact, we know from the abortion providers that they're instructed to give that information, that misleading information to women who do make this inquiry. So she was told, luckily in her case, I didn't tell her you must take the second pill. I said, well, according to Amrita, she was told a lot of the girls changed their mind, but just don't take the second pill. You might be okay. And she felt might is not enough. I need something more. So luckily she looked up abortion pill reversal, and on the internet found the helpline, the American-based helpline, who have international contacts around the world. And they put her in contact with myself, and we were able to get her treatment within, certainly within 12 hours. I can't remember exactly, but somewhere between 9 and 12 hours she got treatment. And she had a few little bits, she had some light bleeding for a few days, and that is very common. I tell, when I'm consenting the girls, tell them what's likely to happen. I tell them all that you are very likely you're going to have some bleeding, because it's the only girls who haven't had bleeding were those who received the mifepristone well into the second trimester, maybe 13, 14. There haven't been too many of those, but there have been a few, and they may not have bleeding. Some of them do, but some will have no bleeding whatsoever. And you could argue maybe they probably would have been okay, because we know that some of the babies will survive even if they don't get progesterone, but we can't determine in advance which ones they will be. Similarly, when I have somebody with comes with a heart attack, I know I give them all the same treatment, but I know that some of them will get more benefit from the treatment than others. Some of them would probably have done just as well, even if they hadn't come to hospital, stayed at home, they would have survived, but you don't know that in advance. So you have to basically treat everybody with the same, in the hope that the outcome will be successful. So in Amrita's case, she had a little bit of bleeding, but she persisted. She was very tired for a few days, but she persisted with it because she was so determined to have her little girl. She didn't know it was a little girl at that stage, but that came later. And everything worked out fine. And now she is an international speaker and has told her story to lots of different outlets. And very, very honestly, she doesn't try to hide anything.
We gave a talk in Oxford together. That was the lady that gave a speech there.
That's right, Amrita was there. Yeah, she came to that with her little girl, and her boyfriend came along at the time too. So
it's so incredible. We talk about the medicine and the progesterone and everything else, but when somebody gives their personal testimony and they've got their baby in front of them, it brings the story to life in such a new context. So it really shows. What in the UK would help get the message about abortion pill reversal out? Because as you said, abortion providers don't provide any information about it. Is there a lot of opposition in the medical establishment to APR? It doesn't have a lot of sort of credibility clout in the UK. What would help sort of raise the profile?
Yeah, well, what would help is continuing to create awareness of it, so to let the people know, because there is not only is there there's a lack of awareness among the medical profession, but the abortion providers not only tell people or not only keep the information away from potential clients or from the general public, but they actively discourage it. So if a mother now goes to them and says, what can I do? I want to save my baby. I've taken the first pill. They're actually now told, and we know this from the girls who do come to us, they're actually being told, whatever you do, do not seek progesterone. It's dangerous. So they're telling them that it's dangerous. Initially, the argument against it, because the initial arguments, well, when we tried, as I mentioned at the start, through the Catholic Medical Association, we tried to encourage especially the NHS, to have this as a mainline service. We wrote to the Royal College of Obstetricians, the Royal College of General Practitioners, the NHS England. We wrote to them with very respectful letters detailing all of the evidence that was coming to light, and then they ignored us. The most hypocritical of all were the RCOG. Their president at the time wrote back to say, we do not recommend any unlicensed treatments. Now, it is true, the progesterone is not licensed for this indication because there's no drug licensed for abortion pill reversal. However, it is licensed. Progesterone is a licensed medication widely used to prevent miscarriage, for example, and in other situations as well. So it is a licensed medication. It's not true to say it's unlicensed. We wrote back to them because at the time, and for the first 21 years of its use in abortion, misoprostol was not licensed for abortion. Misoprostol is it's a drug used in peptic ulcer or stomach ulcer conditions. So it's licensed for that, but it's not licensed for its use in abortion. Similarly, methotrexate, which is a very potent drug, quite a dangerous drug in the wrong hands, is used for chronic inflammatory conditions, but it's also used now off license for the medical management of ectopic pregnancy. And the RCOG are very, very keen to recommend and promote the use of methotrexate as an off-license, unlicensed medication for that reason. And similarly, they're very, very keen to recommend misoprostol for abortion, even though these drugs are off-license. So we wrote back. We didn't call them hypocrites, but we said you may have overlooked the fact that you actually recommend off-license use of certain medications, and we pointed out, and we heard nothing back from them. So we did try to get this service mainline, but now because women need it. We don't do it because of any particular ideology that we have ourselves. We're basically trying to help women. This is a service that women want. They come looking for it. We don't go looking for them. Okay, we have to advertise it because we do need to create an awareness. So to your followers and to your members, I would ask them to make themselves aware of it. Just you don't need to be a total expert on it, and it's very, very simple. It's an antidote to a drug. So someone takes a paracetamol overdose and you want to save a life, we give them an antidote, and that's the case with many drugs. Mifepristone is a poison that's probably going to kill the preborn child, and progesterone is the natural antidote. In fact, the only antidote that's available to it. So for your followers and your members to be aware that, first of all, that it exists, that it's often effective, not always, but at least 50%. And in the UK, the experience is about 55%. The US, the success rate is up to 65%. That they have greater awareness of it. There are something like 1,200 providers of it throughout the United States. So almost every town in the United States, you're going to have somebody, some doctor who will be prepared to provide it. They get it much quicker, so they get it within a matter of hours if they need it. In addition, they have the extra advantage of you can walk into any family practitioner in the United States and get an ultrasound if they have it available. It's certainly a pro-life practice. They'll all have ultrasound machines. And that's very helpful because sometimes it's too late, so that the baby may be no heartbeat, and in that situation, there's no point in giving the progesterone treatment if the child is already dead. We don't have that facility or that privilege, so we commence treatment in good faith in the hope that the baby might still be alive, and so that it largely explains the success rate discrepancy between the US and the UK. But still, as I mentioned at the start, greater than 50% survival rate, so more than doubling the chance that the baby survives. So it's important that your followers be aware that it's available, and most of the pro-life organizations have my contact number and maybe the contact number of other providers as well. And I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to take calls and to offer help if possible. They need to know that it's effective, and they need to know that it's safe. So the line now that's been told is that it's not safe, and there's no evidence to support that. We know that it's safe. It's simple progesterone. We know that it's safe for the baby. We know that it's safe for the mother. And we know that even if the child has been exposed to mifepristone, that mifepristone will either kill the baby within a matter of days or doesn't have any long-term effect.
And so, just to clarify, the abortion reversal pill is just progesterone. That's
just
all it is.
progesterone. Now,
Yeah,
there are different forms of progesterone. So it's the natural bioidentical progesterone. There are some synthetic progesterone which are used in contraception and maybe other indications. But this is natural bioidentical micronized progesterone. It comes basically in two main forms in the UK. So in the UK, the micronized oral form, which is what we mostly use, is utrogestin. It's also used in hormone replacement treatment, but a much lower dose. So utrogestin capsules, the 100 milligram capsules, or cyclogest pessaries, which is I give the mother the option of which you prefer to take tablets or pessaries. Pessaries sometimes are a bit more difficult to obtain. They are more expensive. And that's another issue. So it's because it's not a normal NHS drug. It's not covered by NHS or free aid. So it does have to be paid for, but it's cheap. So a 2-week supply of progesterone, oral progesterone, is about £20.
Yeah.
And a 2-week supply would be or 1 week supply would be about £15 to £20 of the vaginal pessaries.
So the General Medical Council banned you from providing progesterone for 18 months in 2021. So
the intention was 18 months, and that was it. But then on appeal, we when we won our case and the case was dropped, it actually turned out to be nine months or almost 10 months where we weren't allowed to provide the service.
It's pretty extreme to ban you providing a drug. I mean, it's pretty ideological. So,
it was ideological, and there was, as they admitted at the end, like the actual official report following investigation by their case investigators, the crucial line was that there was no prospect of finding any evidence to support the allegations. So basically, they were admitting that there were false allegations. It was disappointing that they actually went with them, because you would think that if you're going to have some sort of draconian penalty on a practicing doctor, that at least you would find out in advance, are these legitimate concerns? Is there evidence to support them? And at no stage did MS. In my case, the allegations were made by two sources. One was, as you correctly said, the medical director of Mary Stopes International, MSI, and the second by the RCOG, the president of the RCOG. So the two of them were out to get me, if you like. So, but neither of them produced any evidence. And it's disappointing that the GMC fell for that they were prepared. But no, it was pretty clear that these organizations are powerful, that they have some friends within the GMC. That became clear during the course of the investigation from some of the correspondence that we had.
And so you never actually got to court. You like before they went to High Court, they caved. Yeah,
because I was defended by Christian Legal Centre, branch of Christian Concern. They were very good. They did a very meticulous operation to ensure that justice was served. When myself and Dr. Riley, because she was also banned, Eileen Riley, who was an obstetrician in Glasgow, the two of us were the two main providers at the time, and we both received an email on a Wednesday afternoon from the GMC to say that serious allegations of potential professional misconduct have been made, and we were required to attend a tribunal, within 2 weeks on the 12th of May. That was a Wednesday afternoon. By Friday morning, Andrea Williams, from the CEO of Christian Concern, had organised a Zoom meeting between myself, Dr. Riley, herself, and two of her leading barristers to say how are we going to deal with this, because our initial concern was, well, it's the GMC, there's nothing you can do, you just have to accept this. And it was a Zoom meeting like this because it was during COVID. She pointed down the camera and she said, no, this will not do, this is unjust, we're going to fight this and we're going to win. And I said, oh, okay, if you're think, I'll go along. So I went along, and they got me so bit by bit to tell my side of the story, to say exactly what we had done. Within a matter of days, they had obtained an expert witness who's a fellow of the Royal College of Obstetricians, performs abortions, is not a Christian, but he looked at the evidence and he said, this is ridiculous. He looked at the lack of evidence, if you like, or the allegations, and said, this is ridiculous. So he was a key factor in helping us. Eventually, the GMC managed to get an expert witness on the other side to try and support the GMC's position. And the report from their expert witness was almost identical to our expert witness report. It was said there's nothing wrong with the service. Okay, he had one or two issues that he wanted us to clarify, about ultrasound scans and so on. But there was, in principle, he felt that this was, a valid service. That, okay, well, he didn't personally think it was a great idea. He wasn't convinced that the evidence showed it was very successful, but he accepted that there was a success rate with it and that it was safe. And then probably most important of all, we got witnesses from several of the women. We could have got about 40 statements. We got them from a variety of the girls that I had helped. We got some from girls who'd already had their babies. We got some from girls who were still pregnant but waiting to deliver. We got some from some of the girls who had tried the treatment and it hadn't worked. And we got some from girls who decided not to go ahead with the treatment, but they were so grateful that somebody, explained it to them when nobody else would. And that was very important because one of the accusations was that I was forcing my pro-life beliefs, my Christian beliefs on these vulnerable women. So they were able to show, well, actually, he didn't. And I had no role in the interviewing of any of these. I just had to ask the girl, is it okay if I give your contact details to a legal person who will contact you? And so we got 10 different statements, a wide variety. And one of the questions that they were asked is, do you know what religion Dr. Kearney is? And does he belong to any organizations? They had no idea. As far as they were concerned, I was a doctor that they were put in contact with that was willing to help them in their desperate need. And that's all they wanted to know.
And you've been on the international speaking circuit, and you're heading to the Association of Pro-Life Obs and Gynae. And what signs of hope do you see in the USA with regards to the pro-life cause? How much further developed is APR in the USA compared to the UK? And what relevance does that have for the UK in terms of promoting stuff here?
Yeah, well, they're way ahead of us in this area. It started in the USA, but even then, like they started in 2012. Even before that, there were a few sort of anecdotal cases, and then they firmly established a program in 2012, and more than 6,000 babies. So that's important to realize. More than 6,000 babies' lives have been saved from mothers availing of the APR service, and that's presumably not the full amount who went looking for. So presumably there's another 3,000 or 4,000 where it didn't work. So you got at least 10,000 mothers who, tried to save their babies from this. So to say that, first of all, that it doesn't happen or that it's not necessary is the first, misunderstanding. Secondly, it's effective. So as I mentioned, the US success rates are over 60%, but that's because there is such a great awareness of it. In fact, in some states, it's mandatory that if a woman is undergoing a chemical abortion with mifepristone, misoprostol, she must be informed by the abortion provider that if you change your mind, progesterone can be given as an antidote after the first pill. So they don't like it, but they have to do it because it's the law in some states, and not many, but I think about 13 or 14 states that have that law. But even apart from that, there is a greater awareness of it, and they can get treatment much quicker. They've got over 1,200 providers, so we need more providers in this country. We need more doctors willing to come forward, and there's nothing to be afraid of. The GMC, from our case, it's a precedent. So if we're following the protocols, and that was one of the crucial issues, I was able to show that I was following the protocol as established by experts in this area, that my knowledge of it was sufficient. So if you just do a little bit of reading, attending some meetings, getting some background information, show that you have a clear understanding of the physiology and the endocrine, the biochemistry, the pharmacology in particular, that there's no reason why any doctor shouldn't be able to provide the service. So we need a greater awareness. APLOG is a wonderful organization. As I said, I'm a member of the Catholic Medical Association, but I have to say that APLOG, I'm even more impressed by them. The CMA is there's an international Catholic Medical Federation, which is great, and I'm a member of that. But APLOG, I think, even surpasses RF, mainly because of their organization, the statements that they issue, the educational content that they provide, and they've got a wonderful website. You can look up any ethical issue in relation to pregnancy, abortion. What's the management of ectopic pregnancy? What's the management of miscarriage? What's the management of dangerous situation in pregnancy? And they will give a very, very clear and honest record of what is the correct ethical approach from a pro-life point of view. Because we're often accused that, we don't care about mothers, we don't care about the child once they're born, and that is not true. We care deeply about all human lives of equal inherent value, and APLOG really exemplifies that and gets that across in their educational instructions and in their statements and in their resources. So it's the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So I'm going to their annual event because they were. The reason I got involved with APLOG was actually through a friend that followed me on Twitter. He was an evangelical Christian who heard about my story. I called Travis Risco, who does a podcast somewhere in Pennsylvania area. And he heard about my story and he said, you really need to contact Christina Francis from APLOG. I'd never heard of APLOG at that stage, and he put me in contact with her. They invited me across in February 22 to speak at their annual conference that year. Now, at that time, when I gave them my details and sent my slides and so on, our case was still ongoing. And as far as we knew, we were suspended for 18 months. And it was literally 2 days before we traveled to the US that the charges against me were dropped, that the case was dropped. It was actually the day of that we were meant to be in the High Court that we flew out to the US. And nobody knew. And Krista Brown, who's from Heartbeat International and head of the APR network worldwide, I was, before I went up on the podium to give my talk, I said to her, "Have you heard the news?" And she said, No, I've heard nothing. So nobody knew anything at all. And I gave my story, and everybody was upset because we were stopped. And I got across the message that I and Dr. Riley, we were the first doctors in history to be banned from saving lives, which is true. That's the truth. Banned from saving lives by a medical authority. But then at the end, I said, I was meant to go to the High Court yesterday. I did go to London, but we didn't go to the High Court. And I said that 2 days before, I received first of all, a phone call from my solicitor from Christian Legal Centre to say that the case had been dropped, the charges had been dropped, the allegations had been dropped. And then half an hour later, I got an official email from the GMC to inform me that the case investigators found there was no prospect of finding any evidence. And the place erupted. I didn't know any of these people, and they all stood up and gave a standing ovation. And I was totally taken back. I thought there would have been. So, "Oh, that's very nice," and a polite round of applause. But they were so excited because they had been following this story from the other side of the Atlantic, unknown to me. And this was a great breakthrough for them because there are a couple of states, particularly Colorado, possibly California, some of the eastern board states, where there is pressure being put on APR services. They're trying to close it down, unsuccessfully so far. But so they know that whatever's happening to us could happen to them, particularly when under the last political administration, they're probably safe for another few years in that regard.
Well, you're a criminal at home and a celebrity abroad. That's been the experience. So. What would help the UK pro-life movement, especially in the sphere of doctors? I used to work for Dr. Peter Saunders at the Christian Medical Fellowship with Care Not Killing, the anti-euthanasia umbrella, and that was an incredible experience. The Christian Medical Fellowship is, for evangelical doctors also, but similar to the Catholic Medical Association, and they did some amazing and absolutely brilliant work. But it'd be great to have a pro-life association of doctors in the United Kingdom or something in that regard, or just somewhere for pro-life doctors to sort of get together to network. I know Dr. Callum Miller is, brilliant doctor. He's speaking internationally. We've got some great people in the UK who speak internationally, get about like yourself. What would help doctors who are pro-life in this country, because you've been under fire and, to be challenged legally, to be banned from saving lives. This is a real challenge, and we have excellent legal organisations here. But is there anything in the sphere of pro-life sort of doctors' world, just bringing people together, that would help? It would help to have an association.
Funny you should say that, because just in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have actually taken the first steps to establishing. We haven't found a title for our organisation yet, but a pro-life doctors group. You don't necessarily have to, while it is mainly members of the CMA and members of the Christian Medical Fellowship, you don't necessarily have to have a religious belief. So we're trying to encourage some secular pro-life healthcare professionals to become involved. So we are in the process of establishing an organisation based on the model of APLOG. Now, again, we're going to be a lot smaller than APLOG, but we all have contacts with APLOG, and we will be collaborating with them and seeking some help from time to time. We're looking also to our friends in Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, because they have a lot in common with us, and again they face similar difficulties to what we're having over here. So there is in the process a doctors' organisation already being established. Callum Miller, myself, Mark Pickering of the CMF, and a few others who I won't mention names because I haven't received their permission to do so from it. But we will be, and we'll be involved in the public sphere. We'll be making statements. We'll be, if called upon and if given the opportunity, we'll be given testimonies, to parliamentary committees, the way that the APLOG members, very frequently do when these type of life issues arise in a Congress type of setting. So we'll be very happy to be involved in the public sphere, the political sphere, advising people, issuing statements, and supporting doctors and other healthcare professionals who want to maintain their pro-life stance in sometimes in a difficult environment, particularly within the NHS.
It's certainly a hostile environment, and my wife's a doctor. We see some of the challenges with regards to having pro-life views in the medical world, and just seeing this assisted suicide bill beginning to sort of come off the rails. Certainly, a lot of organisations submitting evidence showing the dangers of assisted suicide. Just a litany of organisations opposing it, and it feels like at the committee stage that bill has really sort of come off the rails and come off the train. But we'll see what happens with the third reading of that bill in a short period of time. How did you originally get involved in providing abortion reversal pill? What was the first sort of point at which you got involved? Because obviously you're a cardiologist, you're a general surgeon. Was it somebody that came to you, or how did the situation arise? It was somebody inquiring about it, and it was Claire McCulloch phoning you up. Was that you basically requested for help, desperate for help, and you were a doctor and you were able to help?
Yeah, but basically that was, well, as I mentioned, Jack Scarisbrick was the first leading light, but again, there was very little information at that time, 2014. 2018, when Claire, a lot more information. In fact, and then I read everything I could. I saw that there was opposition to it in the United States. I couldn't understand why, but I saw that there was opposition because these people who call themselves pro-choice, and surely they would support the choice of a mother who changes her mind, but that doesn't seem to be there are some choices they'll support and other choices they won't. Actually, and a lot of people might find this interesting, the most convincing article that I read and the most convincing argument for it came after I read an article that was published in 2017. I didn't see it till I think a year or so later. It was actually published in the New York Times. I can't remember the name of the journalist, but it was looking on abortion pill reversal as the new battleground in the abortion world. And there was interviews with George Delgado. There was interviews with a guy in America called Daniel Grossman, who was one of the leading opponents of abortion pill reversal at the time. So they try to give a balanced view, but the clincher for me was a statement from a professor of reproductive and placental research, which is quite a niche area, I thought at the time, in Yale Medical School. I call Professor Harvey Kleiman, who called himself pro-choice, but he said this makes absolute biological sense because he understands the pharmacology, the physiology, the biochemistry of these type of drugs and agents, and what progesterone is, and the effect it has on the placenta and other areas of reproduction. This makes absolute biological sense. And then said, furthermore, if I had a daughter and she was pregnant and she accidentally took mifepristone, the first abortion pill, and she wanted to save her baby, I would give her progesterone high dose straight away for at least a few days and I'll tell you something else, I bet you it would work. So when I read his statement and how convinced he was of it, even though he called himself a pro-choice person, so he wasn't approaching it from an ideological point of view, I said, we got to look into this. That's when I decided, I've got to go to America and meet the people and so on. Then when we did, and then I reported back to the CMA because I had to get permission of the CMA Council to go ahead, and everybody was in support. And we wrote our letters to the various groups. We wrote a few times, got no reply. Apart from the first letter when they said no, we're not going to support, we got no further reply, even though we wrote 2 more letters. On our final letter, though, we said we are going to go ahead with this and make it public. We presume you will have no objections to it, and we didn't hear any opposition, at least at that time. Then I had to try and find, I didn't know how we could actually get it going. Like, are we going to have doctors in every part of the country? I didn't know at that time you could do electronic email prescriptions. I learned that from Eileen Riley, my colleague, actually, she was the first in the UK to prescribe abortion pill reversal. And that came about accidentally because it was one evening there was a call from a girl actually in Ireland looking for help. She phoned the international helpline in Ohio. And the American nurses, sometimes the Americans have difficulty deciding, Ireland, England, it's basically the same country, and which is not quite the same. So they contacted one of the APR providers in Ireland. Could he help this young girl? The girl was in England, but they didn't have anybody in England on their books at the time. She was in England. So they phoned him, and he said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm only registered to practice medicine in the Republic of Ireland. But I do know somebody." Now, he knew Eileen Riley from working with her in the past, and he was able to contact Eileen, and Eileen was able to help that girl, who actually did eventually have her baby. And then Eileen realized that she should register with at least get her name and contact details with the providers in the US. And then she told me that's how you do it. This is how they can contact us. They'll ring the international helpline, and they'll be put through to us. And then, so that's how I got involved. That was in late June 2020 when I sort of did that. It would be obviously quicker if we had if the girls didn't have to go through those processes, if they could just contact us directly. So I've given my name and contact details to your own organisation, CBR UK, SBUC, Christian Concern. So most of the organisations who provide help with young women in crisis pregnancies, they will have my contact details and presumably contact details of some other doctors willing to provide the abortion reversal treatment. So I'm happy to be contacted anyway. And a couple of people have contacted me actually through social media. One or two have read my stories and sent me DMs or direct messages, and one or two have somehow found my email address. I don't know how they got it, but they got it somehow. And they contacted me through that. And usually when they go to that length, they're usually the ones that are going to go ahead with the treatment. And very often they'll be the successful ones. If they're really determined to save their babies, there's a greater outcome. Whereas if they're a little bit ambivalent, there's the chance that they're going to start the treatment and maybe continue the treatment, or maybe not quite so high. Those who really want to, like Amrita, they will very often have a successful outcome.
Yeah. What message do you have for our 40 Days for Life leaders and our volunteers, in all the different countries across the world? Some of them, this will be really helpful and relevant for them. And, I don't know how easy it is to prescribe, to get progesterone in different countries, but what message would you have for them? They might come into contact with women in this kind of situation. This is life-saving information that you're sharing, and you've been an absolute hero in getting this message out and being challenged and winning, sort of being banned and what have you. So what message do you have for our leaders?
Number one, don't give up. That's across the board in all areas of pro-life activity. Never give up, because we're going to have lots of opposition. We're going to have lots of falls. We're going to lose some little battles, but don't give up, because the end outcome. We already know what the end outcome is going to be. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take. So never ever give up doing what's right. Number two, don't be afraid, because I've had the thing that I learned most from this experience is that once you stand up to these bullies, these people, they will cower, they will run for cover. Because, no, it's true, it's absolutely true. The pro-life movement is based on truth. So we're always 100% honest. So we reveal the truth. And for example, we want to hold public debate, but the other side won't debate with us, because they know if exposed to the public, that the public will see that our side stands for truth. So we stand on truth, we stand on courage, and we stand on love. The pro-abortion movement, including those, and this is probably never more exemplified than with my own story, and maybe in Isabel's story, Isabel Vaughan Spruce. But the pro-abortion movement is built on lies, hiding the truth, lies, instilling fear. They want us to be afraid. So they think if we're afraid, we're not going to have the courage to speak. So they're depending on our silence, on our timidity for their message to be heard. So stand up to them strong in in the belief that what you're doing is right, and to be courageous. And obviously keep praying. 40 Days for Life is a great source of prayer, and we know from multiple examples all over the world the value of prayer in this context.
Brilliant. Dr. Dermot, it's been a real privilege speaking with you today. Thank you for your incredibly courageous work, not only in the medical sphere, but also for the pro-life movement, and God bless all your witness. And thank you for saving so many babies with the abortion reversal pill. If people want to find out more information, there's a website like abortionpillreversal.com. Where would you recommend going?
Yeah, I recommend too, probably abortionpillreversal.com gives you the contact details. So it's very important to put in the .com, because if you just put in abortion pill reversal, you'll get Planned Parenthood and BPAS and all the negative things, but the .com is the crucial. And secondly, the APLOG website. APLOG have a whole section on abortion pill reversal, telling exactly what it is, what it involves. So they're two excellent sources.
That's the American Association of Pro-Life
Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
Yeah.
I think it's aplog.com or but even just put in aplog and you'll get AAPLOG.
Thank you so much, Dermot, for a wonderful interview. That was so informative and interesting. For all our listeners, please go to 40daysforlifeinternational.com. That's where you'll find our articles, our podcasts, resources. This has been hugely helpful, and Dermot, I will tell all our leaders and volunteers, share all the information that you've shared with me, and also it's a great opportunity for others to know that there is life-saving option even for those who've taken the first abortion pill. So thank you so much, Dr. Dermot. May God bless you. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. God bless you. Thank you, and
Thank
goodbye.
you, Robert. It's been lovely. Thank you.
No te pierdas los podcasts de 40 días por la vida internacional, con entrevistas, reportajes y testimonios de todo el mundo.
Don't miss our podcasts with interviews, news, and reports from around the world.